VoyMonk video voice vlog number. I'm not doing it. I don't do that anymore. Yep. See, I had to stop myself. Yeah, I hit the record button and I had an idea what I wanted to talk about, and then went nowhere. That's what I think. I wanted to talk about courage. I wanted to talk about image a little bit because I was inspired by one of the video vlogs I did last week or actually a couple of weeks ago, about image, about perceptual ideas surrounding certain ideas that people have, mainly about beauty, but it can be other subjective types of content and things as well, like music or television, theater, whatever, right? The thing is that particularly beauty, I think, comes from a place of courage. And I think most of the time, there's other elements to it as well. Like I said, marketing, I think, can have a lot to say and do with the way that an overall society or socially things in terms of content is received. But not always, because there are times that, groups or society can at one point agree to something, meaning they can accept something as in terms of it being something that they want. But then, of course, then something changes. I'll give you an example, and I talked about beauty, but like I said, there are certain people that, and people, I got to know how to word this so that it's articulated the way that I want. Like people who are considered beautiful, people that are considered or revered in a certain way. I guess that's the direction that I'll go. And then, of course, something inevitably happens that somehow the collective consciousness just switches and goes a different way. Now, sometimes that can be because of a certain event that'll happen, and people will be moved by that and then influenced the other way, meaning whatever it was that made them famous or revered or liked in the first place gets countered in some way that makes them infamous or disliked. Sometimes it can have to do with crime. Sometimes it can have to do with errorous statements, if that's the word that I'm trying to use. But in any situation, like I said, specific perception is the nail that I'm using on this particular point, which is about beauty and about courage. And I think, as it's been stated, I think a few times, that the idea of what beauty is, and I think it generally is going to be slanted more towards women in this particular point than men, but I think men definitely have their elevated and specific ideas that are promoted by society that are contrary to a lot of what reality is. And I'm not getting into any of the political minutiae or anything like that. I'm just talking about beauty as it simply is put, right? And that is that, like I said, oftentimes, and I'll use like supermodels, for example. Supermodels, they look fit, they look beautiful, they look the way that everyone wants, their girlfriend to look, or they want to, be seen or whatever. And that's usually the mark, right? But then what oftentimes happens, as will happen to anyone and everyone, is that, first of all, that perception is usually based on a variety of different factors, none of which are, in my opinion, particularly truthful. They're just a part of the dressing or makeup, as I use it, as it relates to this channel and editing oneself. But of course, people get older, and of course, people change, and of course, people do things differently as they get older. And as that becomes a result, people begin to question what happened, as opposed to maybe what was the perception that they had and why they had it to begin with. And my point is that I think most of the time, the real reason that we find beauty in whatever we look at, outside of everything that I just mentioned as the details, it's usually the courage, for whatever reason, to simply be someone's self, to project themselves and put themselves out there anyways, regardless to the risks that I think we all a lot of times fear and have anxiety about, which is, what are people going to think ultimately about me, my ideas versus reality? So that's what I want to say. I wanted to keep that under 5 minutes, but I didn't. Anyways, so yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about on this Thursday. Courage and the beauty of courage. And there's also different kinds of beauty and courage, but I'm talking about the superficial. Anyways, until next time, take care.